Professor Nordin has studied osteoporosis for many years in England and then at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. He says it was only recently accepted that the disease is caused by a lack of calcium in the bones, and now many pharmaceutical companies are selling calcium supplements.
The pharmaceutical industry has discovered that calcium is saleable, and those two things combined have suddenly brought it to the public notice.
Are people being told to take calcium when they don't necessarily need to take it?
Yes, I think there's some truth in that. Mind you, calcium is important, and don't let's forget that it's now come to the fore because it is a very important part of our food intake. It's a very important constituent of the skeleton, which in fact contains 99% of the body calcium. But like a lot of good things, you can overdo it, and I think that the attempts to get people, young adults, women in their 30s, to take extra calcium are rather misguided. All the evidence is that the osteoporosis problem starts at the menopause.
It was the first time a full bench of any Superior Court had sat in Newcastle. 8 judges of the Family Court of Australia were in attendance, with the Chief Judge, Justice Elizabeth Evatt, presiding. The occasion was also significant as it was the first time an appointment to a Superior Court had been made from the ranks of the Newcastle legal community. And Justice Elizabeth Evatt told the court it was for this reason Mr Justice Mullane's appointment was important, showing the high standard of legal practice in Newcastle. The Newcastle Registry's first permanent judge, Mr Justice Tom Jay, also welcomed Mr Justice Mullane to the bench, saying his experience will be invaluable to the efficient administration of the court.
And that I will do right to all manner of people, according to law, without fear or favour, affection or ill will, so help me God.
This morning we've agreed to release further land to the project team, particularly in front of the Customs House itself, and the project team, on the basis of that assurance, can go ahead and call tenders for what they say will be about a 40-week contract.
The land in question is in front of Customs House and will form part of the new plaza stretching down to the waterfront. Mr Mulog says that despite a 3-month delay with the SRA moving to the Broadmeadow site because of union problems, the harbour foreshore development will be finished on schedule in early 1988. Mr Mulog was then the guest of Labor candidates for the forthcoming council elections at their policy launch. Lord Mayoral candidate John McNaughton says the abolition of the ward system means that funding will now be allocated in terms of need, rather than dividing the money equally among the wards. The policies include support of the state government's rate pegging, a push for funds to extend the art gallery, the beautification of the city and the protection of our natural heritage, as well as the acceleration of the drainage and roadworks. Another plan is for the council to buy the block of land on the corner of King and Wolfe Streets so that it can be preserved and added to Cathedral Park. The Labor candidates also want a traffic and parking study done on Newcastle Central Business District in a bid to entice shoppers back into the city.
Well, the major problem is the fact that we have 3 separate problems, and they're in the past been addressed separately instead of being drawn together. And those 3 problems are the problem of traffic movements, of parking within the city, and public transport. And those 3, our development team on our policy committee over the last 18 months have addressed so many problems, but that one in particular has come out clearly so many times that those 3 things must be addressed as one problem, and that's what we propose to do.
A team of 4 riders started the endurance ride at Barnley Ranch at Raymond Terrace just before midday. First onto the track were Neil Harvey and Graham Clasper from the Central Coast Dirt Riders Club. They were replaced 2 hours later by Brett Henderson and Trevor Ingold from the Belmont District Motorcycle Club. This pattern will continue until midday tomorrow. By then, they'll have clocked up more than 2,500 kilometres between them and raised $7,000 towards a bone marrow unit for the Royal Newcastle Hospital's leukaemia ward. Cold, fatigue and riding through the night will be the riders' main worries, although this stick, firmly lodged in the chain of one of the bikes, slowed progress for a while. Enduring the 24-hour ride in safety is the team's prime concern. To accomplish this, each rider is tailed by at least 2 supporters in case they get into difficulty. According to rider Neil Harvey, this will be especially important for the 12 hours they'll spend riding in the darkness tonight.
The electoral office is located in the Civic Arcade, and throughout the day staff settled in to what is now the organisational headquarters for the City Council election. The Electoral Commissioner of New South Wales, Ian Dixon, was appointed returning officer. However, heavy commitments prompted him to nominate John Wasson as his substitute.
Well, my responsibilities involve virtually the whole conduct of that election. Mr Dixon I consult with him regularly, and we monitor what the situation is from day to day and week to week. I'll be here for a couple of weeks, or maybe a bit longer, then I'll be going back to Sydney, but returning every couple of days to make sure that everything's going along.
People wishing to run for council must nominate by the 13th of this month. To date, no candidates have officially nominated. Voters have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to ensure they are on the electoral roll. At this stage, it numbers just over 100,000 people. Mr Wasson predicts a strong turnout on polling day.
But one would expect that in view of the interest which exists at the present time in the by-elections in Sydney, it's been widely reported in the media, and also the fact that this council has had an administrator for so long and now is to have an election for a council, one would think that perhaps there'd be a larger turnout than what would normally be the case.
In many ways, Tooheys Super Squash marks the coming of age for squash in the Greater Newcastle area, a sport second in player popularity only to bowls, but which has mostly been a game for players, not spectators. Now with big-time sponsorship, glass-backed courts for the spectators and the best local players, the series looks likely to prove very interesting. In last night's opening round clash between International and Raymond Terrace, Philip Ray from Raymond Terrace won his match against Gary Thomas 3-love, but International's Michael Phillip won his match against Dermot Herford 3-2, and International went on to win, tied 2-1. The competition continues at a wide range of venues for the next 16 weeks.
The Newcastle Blood Bank was notified early this morning that Sydney had less than 1 day's blood supply left. They usually keep a minimum 3-day supply. Flooding had prevented many donors from giving blood, and a spate of overnight accidents had quickly used up most available supplies. The Newcastle Bank sent 190 units, or 95 litres of blood by plane at midday to help ease the shortage. But the donation means the Newcastle Bank is now down to its minimum stock of 300 units. They will be notified tomorrow if more blood is required in Sydney. Although there is no critical shortage, the Blood Bank has called for volunteers to come forward and ensure that supplies here are not depleted.
kids at the exhibition well outnumbered the little kids. From the moment the doors opened at 9 o'clock this morning, the Broadmeadow Police Citizens Boys Club was packed. It was a real father and son event, with precision model coal trains, commuter trains and trams snaking their way through intricately fashioned fields, city streets, under bridges and over water. Jerry Hopkins based his Franklin counter design on the New England rail and townscapes in America. It came complete with taped bird and seashore sounds and greenery impregnated with the smell of pines and cedar. Everyone seemed to have the same question: how does it work? But there's no secret behind this manoeuvre. When the doors close tomorrow evening, the organisers expect more than 6,000 people to have passed through.
The Sulphide Corporation was one of Newcastle's first major industries, starting out in 1897 producing zinc. Prior to the First World War, the plant switched its operations to lead smelting. Nowadays, the corporation produces both lead and zinc, as well as cadmium. Today's silver anniversary celebrated the production of the first cast of zinc from the Imperial smelting furnace in August 1961. Since then, 1.4 million tonnes of zinc, 600,000 tonnes of lead and 6,000 tonnes of cadmium have been produced. Today, present and former employees and their families joined local politicians and the General Manager of the Sulphide Corporation, Peter Lean, in celebrating 25 years of continuous operation of the lead and zinc smelting complex, considered to be the most efficient one of its type in the world. The idea to try and educate the community on the importance of nuclear-free zones came from New Zealand. The people for nuclear disarmament are hoping to generate enough interest in the concept in Hamilton that when a city council is elected, Newcastle will become a nuclear-free zone. While not supporting any party in the September 13 elections, PND is still canvassing all the candidates on their views on nuclear-related issues. Richard Fletcher says the door knock in Hamilton is proving successful and denies the campaign is a waste of time.
We think it's got an important role in the movement throughout the world to stop nuclear weapons.
And what sort of responses have you been getting today?
As you're going door to door, more than half of the people are saying, yes, that's a good idea, I support it. Here's your 50 cents.
Marty Fane was putting in some last-minute training at Wald Bentley's gym in Charlestown this afternoon before the big fight tomorrow night. Marty was sparring with another local, Simon Maidment, sporting the Bombay Bloomers, who'll be contesting the main supporting bout. Fane is regarded as a big hitter, and his record of 8 knockouts in 15 professional fights is proof of that. He's the New South Wales featherweight champion and is ranked 6th in the Commonwealth. Trainer Wald Bentley is hopeful of a big result tomorrow night.
I think he's got a very good chance. He's worked very, very hard. He's really trained hard, and of course I think everybody knows Marty's a big puncher, so he's got a chance against anybody.
As you say, he is a big puncher. We're looking for a knockout from the local champ, are we?
Well, we'll put it this way, we're quietly confident, and I've got my fingers crossed hoping so.
Bentley doesn't expect it to be an easy bout. Bobby Mastro is known as Poc Marciano, and Bentley says he's tough as teak. The two have met once before, early in both their careers. That result moved the Fane on points. Tomorrow night, Bentley is expecting a big fight.
I think they're the best fight of the year in Newcastle anyway.
Today, the new Premier, Mr Barry Unsworth, made his first official visit to Newcastle to open the campaign headquarters of Labor's Lord Mayoral candidate, John McNaughton. During his speech, Mr Unsworth said that Newcastle would get a better deal from a Labor state government if it voted in a Labor council.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The Hunter Life Education Centre has been in operation for nearly 2 years now, taking these familiar caravans to schools and shopping centres throughout the region. Its aim is to educate children in particular, but the community as a whole, about their bodies and the bad effects drugs can have on them. The idea is prevention, education and not rehabilitation. Lecturers talk to youngsters of self-esteem and how not to let peer pressure be a bad influence. The Deputy Chairman of Hunter Life is Lynn Thurnham.
Life education is literally about life and educating our youth about themselves, about their uniqueness, about their self-confidence, so that when they get the problems in life, and there are many temptations and problems and obstacles in this world, that they have the strength and the self-esteem to forego the temptations of peer group pressure, drugs and alcohol.
But while the addition of a third bus will enable the Hunter Life Education Centre to reach more children in a wider area, that's the whole Hunter Valley and the Central Coast, a large part of the proceeds of the NBN Telethon will go towards the construction of a new building here on this block of land beside Main Road at Edgeworth. The 4 hectares were donated to the Hunter Life Education Centre by the state government. This is a model of what the completed structure should look like. That is, with the help of the community at large through the telethon.
At this stage, there's been 31,000 children through the vans, and with 4 classrooms at the new centre, that means we can get through 100,000 kids in the year, which is going to be fantastic.
So you're talking about getting to older children as well?
Yes, 4 to 18 is the target, Ray.
The chairman of NBN, John Peshar, emphasised today that telethons have always been community orientated, and this next one will be no exception.
Telethon in the past have been involved in very worthwhile projects, and this is another one that I think will and certainly will succeed in improving the quality of life of the people of our region. And possibly here's an opportunity for our community to once again have a first in this particular case in Australia, in the drug offence program.
I like that. That was good.
Last March, the Newcastle representative Colt side in the white toured America. Yesterday it was their turn to return a favour or two. A baseball team from Camarillo in California is in Australia for a 3.5-week cultural sporting exchange tour on our east coast. The team arrived in Sydney on Tuesday, and yesterday afternoon they played their first game of the tour against the local Colts. The Camarillo Scorpions, as they're called, leave Newcastle this morning and head north for Lismore, where they'll stay for over 2 weeks. The Newcastle side featured several of the city's best up-and-coming players. Victor Troy Martin has already spent time playing the game in the States and will return there in a month to trial with the Atlanta Braves. Many of the other local players are expected to be picked in the senior and junior representative teams when they're selected in the next few months. Yesterday's game finished in a pleasing result for both sides, a 4-all draw.
Just before 3 o'clock this afternoon, a Budgie Boy man was driving the green Toyota forward control van south into Freeman's Drive. Between Avondale Road and Alton Road, according to police, he veered towards the centre of the road and came into collision with this Mitsubishi truck. The Allen's Sweets van is Sydney registered, but was being driven by an Edgeworth man. He was released from his cabin by rescue squad personnel and taken to Wallsend Hospital. No names have been released. In an amazing escape, the 4-year-old son of the badly injured van driver was taken from the wreckage with only a scratched neck and a sore leg. While he was being comforted by a nearby resident, crews worked to stabilise his father's condition and remove him from the van. This was done with the vehicle's brake pedal still embedded in his right foot. He also suffered injuries to the head. The rescue helicopter was standing by, and once doctors and paramedics were satisfied he could travel, the man was taken straight to the Royal Newcastle Hospital.